Донбасу в обмін на припинення вогню. Чи змінилася якимось чином ваша позиція після сьогоднішніх переговорів тут в Берліні? І запитання до канцлера Мерца щодо припинення вогню. Чи ставиться можливою умовою зняття або послаблення санкцій проти Росії в разі досягнення припинення вогню? І які гарантії безпеки Європа, на які гарантії безпеки?
Well, hello, that's me again. Today is actually August the 13th. It is Wednesday, I believe, and Thursday is tomorrow, and I will have a horrendous Thursday tomorrow, busy, and there will be a lot of interviews and things like that. And however, having said all that, and the reason I'm coming to you on the August 13th, it's evening, it's 21:30. 9:30 p.m. in Seattle area, and as you can see yourself, I'm feeling comfortable because we have a dramatic drop in temperatures, and I'm enjoying my 62 degrees Fahrenheit. But it also gave me the actually opportunity to deliver what I was essentially trying to set up my YouTube channel from the get-go, talking about the issues of strategy and operational art. We'll talk about tactics. I know there are very many fanboys there who love, again, those explosions, those things like, oh yeah, he moves to the left and this platoon moves to the right, and here we are, all those drones flying and all kinds of those field manuals are being written. Yeah, it's fine, it's important, make no mistake. Tactics is actually the level, the level below of operational art and strategy, but it still, vertically influences them. But what you see in the beginning actually is how Mr. Zelensky looks like at this coalition of the willing, so to speak, which gathered, whatever it is, I don't follow this crap anymore anyway. I believe Berlin, Mr. Merz was hugging this filthy guy, and you can see on his, basically by his gestures and his face articulations, that he is on a, it's not just drugs, it's some psychotropes, it's some kind of the, I don't know, antidepressants or whatever it is, panic attack things. I heard they use antidepressants to treat panic attacks. And so when you look at this, you definitely can see that he is not a normal person, and he is a pale shadow of his, inspired and very active one. But this is the type of the people who actually European politicians are themselves. They just do not present it in this openly, into your face way. But yeah, most of them are people who absolutely lost any kind of the touch with the reality. And before I go and discuss strategic issues here, which are important in terms of actually detaching yourself from all this fairy tale of the Western military accomplishments, we need to go and talk about what is happening, in the in special military operation, and how this whole hysteria, which reached the, I don't know, ultrasound pitch, I mean, it's unbelievable. And you can see yourself, if we take a look at Wall Street Journal, that the desperation is palpable. We obviously know that Mr. Trump threatens Russia with all kinds of things, which Russians don't give a flying coitus about. But here it is. This is a Wall Street Journal today. Oh my God, Trump agrees on Ukraine red lines with Europe before Putin summit. And then, of course, comes the substance of the article, which essentially it's nothing more than putting the band-aid on the, fourth stage cancer of the skin of the European leaders. And so what he says, Trump told his European peers that he won't negotiate territorial issues, saying that Ukraine must discuss that directly with Russia, said German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, who initiated the meeting. So there you go. It's actually, Trump is pretty specific here. You have to give him a credit where the credit is due, because he is actually speaking intangibles. So the US president had made it clear that any security guarantees offered to Ukraine as part of the potential peace deal, yeah, that's combination combination of, yeah, it's funny. With Russia wouldn't involve the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, but he accepted that other guarantees would be given jointly by the US and Europe, said Emmanuel Macron, the French president who attended the meeting. Macron pointed to a potentially significant change in Trump's position on the issue. I also have the probably good news in terms of the potential significant change in my bowel movement, if you wish, so it's all, it's all PR, it's all desperate attempts to cover up what actually Mr. Orban went out on record and correctly stated, and I was saying this, basically for a long time, and here we're going to all those headlines, and Orban absolutely, there you go. I cannot even, how else can I really basically interpret it, because Orban, Russia has won Ukraine war. And this is today, and Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has declared that Russia has won the war in Ukraine, a provocative statement made just days before a high-stakes meeting between President Trump and Vladimir Putin. In a YouTube interview, Orban claimed the West must accept this reality. West cannot accept this reality, but Trump is pushed to accept this reality, and maybe the last off-ramp he will ever have, get the hell out of the way. That's what, by the way, he is also promising to everybody, that no, if Putin doesn't agree, well, nothing's gonna happen, and United States will quit. Sure, and he promises escalation of something. Sure, Russians are scared. Yeah, I'm just kidding. And so, listening experience, this is how the ABC, well, it's actually many networks frame it, that Russia-Ukraine latest White House framing summit as listening exercise. Oh, absolutely. And that's the only way they can do it, because there's, again, the only thing which drives all this is the correlation of forces and means, and correlation of forces and means means what? That you have to have the very positive one for yourself. United States is not in the position to have any kind of claims to any kind of the strategic issue that it can lead in some way, one way or another, because sorry to say it, but militarily, United States is a paper tiger, and especially in terms of the combined arms operation, it has everything to do with this many years of abusing the military history and writing all kinds of those fairy tales about the fact how, as Mr. Trump continues to insist, United States defeated Hitler just, with small help of those, little guys from Red Army and things of this nature. And of course, we all know about this nauseating thing of beating the crap out of Saddam's army. So, Mr. Trump comes up suddenly with another thing. And this is just absolutely amazing. And that's what we're going to be talking about today also. So he, as Telegraph reports, oh my gosh, look at this. Trump is going to woo Putin, probably to try to present mineral deal to Putin in Alaska. US president armed with money-making opportunities to encourage Russia to end Ukrainian war. They won't ceasefire, obviously. Russia is not gonna to end the war. And they produce the fake map of some kind of the resources Ukraine has. There is one problem with this, in all those graphite, lithium, what have, germanium, by the way, which Russia has immense resources, of germanium. And so, well, what can I say? People, of course, they lie, because Russia has all of it and even more. Russians do not have enough time and money, actually. Well, they have money, they don't have enough time to develop all those resources in enormous quantities, which make Russia sit on the basically more than a third of the world's resources, mineral resources ranging from obviously gas and oil to rare earth metals, and I don't know how else to explain it, but what can I say? This is what happens right now. And before I go and get into the strategy issue, I want to show you the little bird. It's called the Tit Bird. Yeah, it just sounds funny that, you see, this is, there's a finch, they also called finches, and in England, I believe, they're the tit bird. It's a small bird. And Russians have the proverb. And this is, I believe, actually in English language, there is something very similar. And Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. I just don't remember the precise definition or precise statement of this proverb. That it is better to have the tit bird in your hands than the crane flying in the skies. So I'm pretty sure this similar proverb is everywhere in all cultures around the world. So it's a people's folks, so to speak, folklore wisdom. So everybody knows this. And yes, it's better to have the tit bird, which is small, insignificant, in your hands, but something tangible than something which flies in the sky. And this is how actually the strategy is viewed in the United States, in the combined West. That means what? It is viewed by amateurs. As I already stated, Western NATO militaries don't know what strategy is. None of them. No guy in the, for example, the General Staff and Command College in the Kansas, Leavenworth, Kansas, or elsewhere, or whatever, King's College, know what strategy is. They lived for 80 years in the basically fairy tale alternative universe of the military history and operational art and strategy. They never studied anything which really should have influenced their view of the situation with the real war, and especially war involving those massive combined arms operations, those strategic things, So what do? We're gonna go back to Mr. Svechin. And you remember Mr. Svechin strategy? I strongly suggest you to read it. And this is, you can download it in English, I believe. So, but there is obviously a Russian edition, which is free. You can also download it, and you can go from there and basically read some of those things. You have to understand they are obviously obsolete. They do not apply by most of it, especially in terms of strategy, in terms of how you match your resources and how you as he describes, he terms it the strategic line of behavior. They are absolutely precise and prescient. And in this case, that's why people say, oh, Gerasimov, Chief of General Staff of Russia, this military genius guy, he loves to quote, and he talks about Svechin. Absolutely. Because actually, you can go and quote Clausewitz or Sun Tzu, whatever you want, or Jomini for that matter, or what have you. But the problem is the type of the warfare and the type of the political realities they were writing it about doesn't exist today. It's very different. You, of course, can go out and basically argue about the unchanging unchanging human nature. Well, true to a degree, but only to a degree. And that is why when people begin to this soap opera all the time about Bulov, Jomini, about Sun Tzu, about Carthage, about the Roman Empire, it's becoming nauseating to the point that you cannot take them seriously anymore, because Russians have this famous proverb I presented to you. It's called they pull their owl over the globe. This means what? Creating something which doesn't fit real empirical and theoretical experiences. So that means what? Feeding the facts to the theories which really do not exist anymore as any viable option, especially for people who deal with strategy. And already long ago lost the interest, I didn't lose the interest for tactical issues, so which are still important, make no mistake. But again, in the world of real mathematics and real military mathematics and the models of the combat and operations, it's not serious anymore, okay? So, and here we go. So Mr. Svechin we talk about the territory. I always stress, basically it's not my idea. It is the ideas which have been basically promoted, including a number of people, for example, like Bulov and Jomini also, and of course Svechin, and of course Russian General Staff today, who basically did what the situation called for after it was clear in the special military operation that the whole NATO will be throwing its resources behind Ukraine. Russians went and sat into the strategic defense, which of course doesn't mean that you cannot attack. You can attack while being in the strategic defense, but again, you cannot explain what strategic defense is and why it is done. You cannot explain to people who admire Patton because they do not know, they don't understand operations, they do not know military history, real military history, and of course they have no clue what combined operations against the peer are. They never encountered one. And so what we have, Mr. Svechin, as I presented to you before, he talks about the ground, what is called the material battles, and I want to read it to you again because it is absolutely critical. And what are material battles? These are battles, or essentially wars, which test the economic, industrial, scientific, cultural, whatever cohesion of the society, and even the so-called material battles of positional warfare, which are designed to last entire months and involve trampling over the same piece of ground in an organized way, and in which lifelong, therefore gaining ground is less important than inflicting greater losses on the enemy than the losses we bear. Even in these exceptional cases, surprise in concentrating on material and the resultant surprise in beginning an operation is of great importance for success. So this is Mr. Svechin from his strategy. And if you think that I am, somehow trying to regurgitate the same point, no, I'm not regurgitating the same point. And here is what is most important: why Russians are not in rush, especially on the eve of meeting of Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin in Alaska, in Anchorage at the Elmendorf Air Base, that Russians supposed to be doing some kind of runs towards Kiev, towards whatever. Not really. Russians are in this business to kill whatever is left of the NATO best proxy in history. And they are doing this successfully. And then, of course, Russians do not want to govern Ukrainians. They don't. I mean, there is no discussion, as Foreign Ministry today of Russian Federation stated, that if somebody will try to bring up this issue of the freezing the conflict or the present line of combat contact, they said, look, that's what Foreign Ministry stated. Look at the Russian Constitution. There are basically administrative borders of the all those new 4 oblasts, and they are not negotiable. Period. You either take it or leave it. Well, if Mr. Trump wants to do this listening experience, so to speak, in Alaska, sure, Russians will provide the listening experience for the American delegation, but something more at play here, which many people don't see. And here comes the issue: why Russians do not want to govern Ukrainians, at least for now. I think that Ukrainstvo, so to speak, the Ukrainian idea as such, will be eventually eliminated. But look at this. This is what Mr. Svechin writes again. Look at this. This is so important to understand for people who still love Patton movie. Well, obviously amateurs love it. So, not responding to the idea of political defense, he refers to obviously World War I, part of which he was, and he commanded a regiment there. Ludendorff's individual successes were only a stage towards the final loss of the war. Obviously, he's talking about Germans. And he talks about this territory thing. As for the advantages that flowed for the conduct of the war from the occupation of new territories and the removal of military operations from German fatherland, they should be treated with great skepticism. And here he brings us a beautiful Rousseau remark when he talks about Hannibal. I have defeated the Romans, wrote Hannibal. Send me troops. I have imposed indemnities throughout Italy. Send me money. This is what the Te Deums, the Teum being as the Christian anthem, the illuminations and the delight of the people at the triumph of their masters mean. As you can see yourself, it's strategy, page 38. And so, what can I say? This is all PR. You need to feed, hoi polloi with this illusion of the, how to put it politely, victory. And this is what actually Western militaries are. They all about PR. They are not about actually sustaining the war. The United States will not last for 2 weeks in the real war. God forbid, of course, in the continental combined arms war with Russia, and of course it will escalate to the nuclear threshold. So, but that's what it is. They don't understand what it is. That's why they like Patton and the movie. Patton was mediocrity at the best. And so then, of course, Mr. Svechin develops other things about the territorial conquests. Then, and here it is. The experience of the 1920s shows that it is necessary to carefully prepare for the use of the composite conjuncture. There is a great scope for dreams of resurrecting Tamerlane strikes for thousands of kilometers. Remember Tamerlane? Remember all those great, Mongol Tatar empires and all those great empires of the Middle East, who basically, those strikes for 1,000 kilometers. And he already writes about 1920. We're at 2025. And he talks about it. A dreamy strategy. Yes, this is the foundation of the NATO. This is how the guys think about it after this collapse of the Soviet Union. Before that, NATO was in the more or less basically defensive posture. However, in our age, and it was 1920, it was 105 years ago, this dreamy strategy is more dangerous than ever. An exaggerated estimate of the possibilities of using the forces and means of the occupied territory can distort the perspective and lead to the view of war as an expansion of the general base. Such a doctrine would be dangerous in its one-sidedness, in its advocation of the seizure of territory at all costs as the main task of the armed front, in its desire to measure victories by the number of kilometers captured outside the state border, in its underestimation of the Tit Bird of the existing rear and communications with it, and its pursuit of the crane of the base ahead. Base ahead being, of course, the idea that somehow you can put the occupied territories to work for you. You can't anymore. It doesn't work like this. And this is the key point. Bring me any NATO general, especially the general who went through some kind of ROTC program when they teach them how to calculate 2 plus 2, and especially the guys with the degrees in who knows what, journalism or sociology or history, what have you. And I will not be able to explain to them how the modern war works, because they indeed Patanesque BS, that the more you take the territory and things like that, for some reason that makes you a great general. No, it doesn't. Russians actually, the whole idea, for example, of unprecedented advance, let's say during the Operation Bagration with the Red Army in 1944, was actually not just liberating territory which was supposed to be liberated because it was Soviet territory, it was the national territory, but it was the idea, which was executed brilliantly, of annihilating of the whole group army center. It shook the world. There was nothing ever since and before in terms of what has been achieved in Operation Bagration, which, oh my God, there are so many people in the US and Western militaries who do not like to talk about it. Because, of course, how can Zhukov, Rokossovsky, Vatutin, Antonov, Vasilevsky, oh my God, Talbuchin even measure to Mr. Patton, who never commanded more than one army? And so that's what is the foundation of it. So Russians basically went to Berlin in 1945 the same as they went into Paris in 1814. It's to basically to destroy the nest of the troubles for Russia. Of course, as always, there were many people who actually associated themselves with those victories and said, oh, look at this, we also defeated. Well, yeah, nobody tries to diminish the heroism or dedication of American GIs or American generals. Some of them brilliant and have been completely eclipsed by this, big mouth Patton. Nobody remembers Hodges, but Hodges was a very effective general, let alone about Omar Bradley, and let alone about Ike, who was accused of not understanding the strategy, while in reality he was a great strategist. But you know what? PR, movies, you need to present this whole thing. This is not to say that Russians do not measure things in terms of their square acreage or square kilometers of the liberated territory and things of this nature. No, Russians do this too. But if you look at actually the territorial issue of the strategy and even operational art, the foundation of it all is physical annihilation of the enemy forces. Period. And as has been stated non-stop, actually, if you capture territory during this, and especially if it's not your territory, it's just a matter of the necessary evil. And so this is what is this all about. Now, obviously, we have to go and take a look at what are they having issues with. I want to send you back to, first, what is this, so to speak, the Tit Bird enhance, and what is this crane flying in the sky? So as you can see yourself, today's tallying, it continues, it grows, and yeah, so again, the losses on the Ukrainian and actually a bunch of the NATO volunteers side are catastrophic, and that is why is what is happening. Here it is. As you can see yourself, this is the map from yesterday. As you can see yourself, those breakthroughs, very long ones, you know, this time they go into like 15 kilometers and more, and we already know the fate of the Krasnoarmeysk, former Pokrovsk, and the fate of Konstantinovka. But there is also interesting development today. Look at this. This is also in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. Russians suddenly, look at this. They are in, if you take a look at the right lower corner, you can see the scale here, 2 kilometers. Oh, you can see yourself that Russians are already in Voronezh, and they already fighting for Sosnovka, which will be liberated, or maybe already liberated. Do not forget, those maps do not reflect the immediate, you know, actual state of the hostilities. So if you take a look at the length of this red line, it's another at least 7 to 8 kilometers. And Russians continue this advance, and here comes this issue. When you look attentively at those, you know, really large advances, and I will put, for example, this another situation with Rodinskaya, yeah, and the Red Liman was also liberated today. So if we go back to those, as you can see yourself, orange things, you see these are those breakthroughs, and they are actually much longer today. And here is the issue. This has been done using absolutely new tactical methods and absolutely different approach to the maneuvering. Let me explain to you what it is about territory. Well, we have to remove now the issue of the actual Russia's territorial acquisitions, which have been already accepted as such in Constitution of Russian Federations of those 4 new oblasts. But look at this. If you look at those orange things, how did they do this? Well, let me put it this way. It was another brilliant operation by some of our good friends. I'm not going to be naming their names, but the point is here. It was done again using this. Do you know what it is? This is the tunnel which Russian engineering troops or in American Corps of Engineers or whatever. So the military engineers, that's what they do. They dug them through. And this is where you push, you know, in all kinds of the battalions with all their equipment, including tanks, BTRs, armor in general. So, and here is what very interesting. Do not forget that present-day Ukraine used to be Soviet territory. And fact is, most of the eastern Ukraine was actually historically Russia. And here's the map. Here's the map of the, as you can see yourself, Donbass. Donbass stands for Donetsk Basin. This is the Donetsk Basin, or basically the Soviet map of the actually mines. And some of those mines, you know, as you can see yourself, some of the in the red, and those are the centers of the processing, whatever is being mined there, all kinds of ores and coal and things like that. And in the red rectangle, you can see yourself precisely the extent of Russian advance, which is very large. Now it's probably between 15 to 20 kilometers. And you have to see yourself that those mines, coal mines, lines. They're literally strung there, you know, like pearls on the string. And what does it mean? It means a very simple thing. It means that they have huge tunnels, they have huge underground infrastructure, which was used, and it was used, I mean, masterfully by Russian army, including obviously the use of the army engineers with their heavy equipment, bulldozers, their tunnel making things, and if anybody thinks that why Russians are so good at it, have you been to Moscow Metro or St. Petersburg Metro? Well, go, you will understand. Russians are the best metro builders in the world. Well, they're not just build stations, the whole metro stations and the whole metro system there, state of the art, is basically a museum, you know, arts museum. So, and this is what has been done, and this is all about not territory. It was again about annihilation of the resource, or whatever's left of the resource of the armed forces of Ukraine. It is actually classic Svechin. If Alexander Svechin, if you read about it, that is why Mr. Gerasimov loves to use this whole thing, and that's. Again, I will just read this and for you, and Mr. Gerasimov quotes this. A particular strategic policy must be devised for every war. Each war is a special case which requires its own particular logic rather than any kind of stereotype or pattern, no matter how splendid it may be. The more our theory encompasses the entire content of modern war, the quicker it will assist us in analyzing a given situation. A narrow doctrine would probably confuse us more than guide us, and we must not forget that only maneuvers are one-sided, while wars are always two-sided. We must be able to get a grasp of war as it is perceived by the opposing side and clarify the other side's desires and goals. Theory is capable of benefiting only those who have raised themselves above the fray and have become completely dispassionate. We have chosen this path despite the dissatisfaction with which several of young critics have encountered the excess of objectivity, the posture of an American observer. And let me put it this way. Russians know about American military more than American military knows about itself. Oh God, yeah, don't start me onto this OODA loop, right? Observe, orient, decide, act. Or how you get inside this OODA, decision-making loop of your enemy. Russians already knew what NATO militaries were and how they think, or rather how they do not understand the strategy. And on strategic level, Pentagon and all those people from Brussels, those headquarters, they have been manipulated by Russian general staff like the kindergarten kids who have been caught by their totally amateurish understanding of the modern war, and we have what we have today. And Mr. Orban is not incorrect when he says that actually Russia won the war. It was clear, as I was on record, since this magnificent coitus on unbelievable scale when the American and NATO and British operational planning, so to speak, has been exposed as the nothing more than kindergarten level during this famous counteroffensive, and then during killing basically 80,000 of their best troops in Kursk. What can I say? Did they study real military history? Nope, they don't. Most of them don't understand actually what was happening on the, for example, Eastern Front. And so, what can I say? Well, it's their loss. And of course, we're talking about the other strategic issues which pertain to the strategic forecasting and strategic intelligence, which United States doesn't have. American intelligence is a joke, as are military academies, which prepare people who are absolutely not fit to fight modern warfare. And when I say that General King or whatever, Kellogg, they won't be allowed to command battalion in Russian army, I mean it. Those guys will kill more people before they achieve anything. Or maybe they will no, they will not commit suicide. They are not that kind of people. Anyhow, this is what I wanted to tell you today. And this is also to prepare you to kind of massage your intellects a little bit before the meeting in Alaska, which I think so is a positive sign. And before maybe, I'm not saying that it's necessarily 100% true, but actually the last off-ramp for Trump and the United States to get off or to crawl out of it before Russians begin to really, like me, point out inevitable which cannot be contained anymore. The combined West have been defeated, and it was defeated in the last salvos of the World War II. But do not forget, Soviet Union, United States, and United Kingdom, Great Britain, we were allies. Somebody forgot about it. But what can I say? 80 years is not a long term for history. It's really just an hour, if you wish. So, and this is what I wanted to tell you today, guys. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on the Patreon or too. And I'll talk to you later. Oh, pardon me, support on Patreon and buy me coffee. Yeah, I'm beginning to kind of, lose my... Well, it's now 10 o'clock anyhow. So, guys, have a nice rest of the week, and I'll talk to you probably on Saturday. I will be talking to a number of people on tomorrow, and I'll be talking on Friday to some large station in New York, a radio station, and Saturday we'll know first results and the hysteria which will be in Western media. Have a nice rest of the week. I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.